no matter what's happening, you're the only one that cares. If things happen at Friends for Life, at the end of the day, you're the only one that cares because it's your business. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like when things happen to me, if I want my podcast to grow, I'm the only one that cares. Nobody cares if it fails except me.
Now, it's funny that you asked that because it actually gets me back to the thought of some of the people that we have some of the hardest conversations with, and that's the parents/guardians. And I want to particularly say parent right now because we have some guardians who are a little more laid back and chill, and it's because they don't have that direct involvement through the parental units. So the parents, I've seen a lot of scenarios in which they're not prepping their family member for the ultimate future, or at least a possibility of an ultimate future. And we all know a lot of my passion is for self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, this is Tony.
And this is Paul, and we're coming at you from the Friends for Life podcast, where we discuss the ongoing lives and issues of people with developmental disabilities to spark positive change in the field.
And we have a lot of fun doing it.
Making sure that individuals are reaching the goals they have set for themselves. That's one of the many goals of Assured Health Services. If you're looking for a residential care provider or searching for ADS services, Assured Health is your go-to place. Assured Health, helping others succeed. Learn more at assuredhealthohio.com or call 419-442-8066. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Friends for Life podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. Now, Tony and I have been hitting the road pretty hard over the last few months, and it's been a long time since we just sat down and had a little check-in session. So, Tony, we've been to quite a few counties. We've been to quite a few events lately. Not a lot of time in the studio. So what are some of the bigger things that you've learned out on the road from working with different agencies?
That, I don't know, I guess it's going to sound corny, but we're not alone. There's so much conversation that we've had with other agencies and county boards that you feel like you're in identical spots. Have you ever talked to somebody and things correlate so well together that you want to interrupt, like, ooh, me too. Yeah. It's a lot of those moments. They haven't been, I think the scary thing is it's not always helpful to be in a situation like that. In immediate help. I think when you're looking towards growth and you're looking towards actually accomplishing a goal, it kind of kicks you in the ass and okay, so all of us are going through it. Now let's figure out the solution.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing that I've learned is that all the different county boards operate totally different.
Yeah.
If it's a statewide or countywide organizations all across the state, I kind of figured they'd be more uniform in what they do. But they all operate way different from one another. Yeah.
Even in the stance of how they interact with other agency providers too. Like some that are very, very tight knit and close, and others are kind of, stay at your shoulder. And it's not necessarily said like that, but you can see it through the way that the other agency providers were involved.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool to see all the different programs that are running throughout the state. I mean, there's so many things that we were not aware of before hitting the road. I mean, you spend so much time in your own little world, in your own county, and you know all the people that work in that field locally, and then you realize there's equivalents to them everywhere you go.
Yeah.
But there's programs like Changing Spaces and stuff like this that we had no clue about. There's all these big advocacy events that we didn't know about. There's just so much going on.
Even the tech houses. There's a lot of those going on, and even locally we have a little tech hub, I believe, in a couple of the county boards that are arm's reach from us. But like those, I can't wait till we air the episode that we're going to have with one, because just from what I have gathered, there's a lot of sweet stuff in there.
Yeah. A lot of great technology out there too. It's kind of weird. We've found a lot of people who delve into technology for people with disabilities. Like we just had Ken on and with Ability Tech, and he has great technology and all the stuff we've learned about remote support and how they can help people and kind of breaking some of the stigmas and myths around the disabilities field that people have that are very common. And I've found that that's really, with anything, you're going to have pushback when it's new or it goes against the way people have been doing things for a long time or the way people believe of things should be. But a lot of the time it ends up being breaking that myth and showing people the reality of it really helps. I think we've been able to do that for a lot of different industries within the DD world, because we're just telling stories and we're learning how to help people better. That's the goal of the podcast, is to make sure people have better access to the tools they need, and then making sure that they have better, understanding of how the system works, because we don't even know how it works fully. It's so complicated, and then the people that work at it are even half the time in the county boards and stuff are like, I didn't know any of this until I started working here. So
honestly, I mean, we've seen so much of the frustration just through trying to see through the fence, let alone climb it or get a door made for it. And as you said, even a person like myself who have been doing this almost 20 years now, there's so much that I don't know. And I think that helps me for my advocacy in DSPs and for the individuals we serve, because I'm trying to look at it through a light of both and give that devil's advocate where I can on either side. But as you said, and as a lot of us soon realize, it's not a problem until somebody recognizes it's a problem. And some of our pushback, unfortunately, is we start asking ourselves, well, is that really a problem? Is that really an issue? Or is this isolated to a small majority? And I don't know if it's right for humanity to look at that like that, but
well, I mean, one of the things that's really important is the amount of cooperation that's going on between everyone in all these different counties. I mean, there's so many people willing to work together. And with a lot of industries, you see a lot of isolation. People don't want to share their secrets or whatever. And it doesn't help anyone in any way, shape, or form. I mean, we've learned about just recently in the last couple of weeks traveling to we went back to Pickaway County, and we went to an event there, and we learned about other people that have podcasts that we didn't even know about. So it's really interesting to see other people, and we're going to collaborate with all of these people down the road. And it's really collaborative effort is going to make things better for everyone. I read a book recently called, it was called Turning Pro. And it was about this man about just what he learned basically from becoming an amateur writer to a professional writer. And he basically said, amateurs hold secrets. They don't want anybody to know their special thing. So professionals give away all of their information because they're so good, they're not worried about it. Like the likelihood of other people stealing their information is low because it's taken them so long to learn it and so long to get to that point that they're not concerned about anything. So like professionals help people. Amateurs have this like paranoia that everybody's going to steal their next great idea, and it's usually not how it works. So
I think we've I know I've said this countless times, and I say it to my kids all the time. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I think a lot of the times, and you and I have sat through countless, I guess, entrepreneurial views on many things in people's lives, from starting podcasts to starting businesses. And typically, I think the one thing that most people forget is the hard work and dedication that goes into it. The countless hours that you're not getting paid, the countless times that you are failing, and everybody who looks at you, they're looking at you as you are the complete reason for all the chaos and horribleness in their lives. And that is a very frustrating vibe, man. But that goes to the point, really. A lot of the things are just fairly simple. It's showing up. You know, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, yes, they had certain skills that made them talented, but it was the 4 a.m.s of Kobe being in the gym, the day 3 of a different workout after 2-day workouts for Michael Jordan. Like, all of these things culminated into who these people are. And it wasn't just saying, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. They showed up when no one else would or when no one else could.
THS Remote Supports is clearly focused on improving independent living through dynamic and personalized services. Their systems have been carefully developed and perfected to ensure that everyone receives the best care through the least intrusive means possible. Located in Cincinnati, Ohio, they've spent over 20 years providing in-home supports to individuals with disabilities. If you or someone you know is looking for a remote service provider, go to thsrss.com or call 513-882-9088. Well, the intellectual and developmental disabilities field.
Oh yeah, we like it when you talk like that.
Yeah, I feel like they're really resistant to change, and we've been highlighting a lot of the companies that and organizations that have taken bigger risks, and kind of going into this digital age. I feel like there's a lot of pushback that. I mean, some of it is warranted. It's not like we're dealing with sports, and it's just like a cool, entertaining thing. It's dealing with people's lives, so I can see the hesitation with a lot of this stuff. But as you and I have been saying since we've started this, it's very important to get this message out there. And something as simple as a podcast, which a lot of other people are starting to do and have been doing, is really important because you can talk unabridged on issues that you're facing and bring a reality to it. I mean, there's a lot of things we talk about that aren't pretty. A lot of things we talk about that aren't fun. But I mean, it's important that people know that everyone is having these issues and not living in these isolated places where they're not able to like feel like there's someone who can help. Because I would guarantee you every organization or business in the IDD world is having similar struggles.
Oh, yeah. And I think that it's almost as ignorant of us and extremely selfish for us to not realize it and make it known. As you said, you know, a lot of our topics aren't pretty, and one of them that we're going to be getting into, so for our listeners to know, one of our future episodes is with housing rights, and especially for especially here, we're going to delve into the reasons behind DD exclusion, and so on and so forth. But the notion that the DD world doesn't go through this stuff, I think is kind of weird, or it's weird to the point if we're not talking about it, if we're not discussing how to maneuver and go around the system. You know, it's almost ignorant, and it would be horrible for us to look away. It's just like you and I. I mean, the real world will say if you and I went to go buy a house, you would have a better advantage of getting it in a more prestige place, probably the better credit line and everything else, just due to our skin complexions. Now, if we add a developmental disability onto that, boom. Like now, who is that actually an advantage or a disadvantage for? And why is that? So, you know, I think we are one of those areas of conversation that actually we're just adding more questions to the conversation. But I think that's the only way you can get real, you know, down to earth answers.
Well, I follow a lot of like CrossFit stuff, and I just like doing it because I have not very good at paying attention and doing the same thing over and over again. So it's very, very much different things every day, which I enjoy. But one of the CrossFit Games is like their Super Bowl, and they have an adaptive athlete, like disabled athletes, part of the CrossFit Games. And I saw this article. They changed the rules, and some of the people who were high performers in the last year's games aren't allowed, and then to come back for certain reasons. And then that raised the question for a lot of places. Like, so you're saying I'm not disabled enough to compete in the disabled? And it's questions like that. I mean, people will often criticize that stuff and be like, oh, you're just whining, whatever. But like, imagine being disabled your whole life, and then someone saying, oh, now you're not disabled enough. It would be like someone saying, Tony, you're not black enough to say that. Like, it would be the same.
Which ironically, I've been told.
Yeah. I mean, it's a strange concept, but we're constantly navigating, like in the DD world, those social issues.
Yeah.
And it's good when those things get brought to the surface. And we have these conversations off the podcast all the time, how absurd a lot of this stuff is. And, it's never... People treat society like it's this big thing trying to tear you down. Society is lots of little groups of people that, at a large scale, have what is considered society, and these little micro groups that have this thought, and micro groups have that thought, and that all
equals society. Twitter now.
Like, so if you want to change the quote unquote society, you have to work locally and make change, and that change will ripple. And that's why these conversations are so important. And that's why, back to my initial point, it's important to have, I don't care if it's a podcast, I don't care if it's a blog, I don't care if it's people talking for Reels and TikTok and stuff, having these conversations. You're going to get pushback. I post stuff on my personal podcast all the time that's very highly politicized in the outdoors world.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't forward society ever by not trying to fight for the right thing.
Yeah.
People are going to push back against it, and you just have to be willing to accept that. Some of the stuff we say on here is probably pretty controversial, but we're okay with that.
Yeah.
We get comments on YouTube and stuff all the time, like people saying the R word and saying this is the dumbest crap I've ever heard, and that's just going to come with it. There are just hateful people out there.
The territory, which people, we're coming for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be reading them. Yeah, if you got some crazy stuff to say, go ahead and say it. I like a little healthy, what's the best word? A little...
Criticism?
Interaction. Yeah, I like interaction.
Well, I mean, for the most part, comments and things of that nature are relatively friendly. But I mean, there's some people who just like to say stuff just to make people mad. That's society. That's how people are. That's how it is.
Yeah, well, and you notice who's for the good and who's not. Yeah. I mean, in our field of work, I can tell you within 2 weeks of someone working with an individual where their heart muscles really are when it comes to, are we doing this for the individual or are we doing this for their paycheck? Yes, I understand. Paychecks have to come. Mm-hmm. You do not have to do this field of work to get a paycheck. Now, the convenience factor sometimes behind how hard physically you have to work in this field is the reason a lot of people pick it, because you don't always have to be physically involved. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that when it's time for you to be physically involved, you act like that's not a part of your job description. Yeah. So there's all of these different nuances that come with what we do. But I don't know. Have you ever just felt so comfortable about something that you just really couldn't see the downside of it? And like that has been this field of work for me. Mm-hmm. I think the worst time that I had, and I've spoke this to people before, but I had a scenario, man. I think I broke down in tears. I was just it was the worst, just like combined of daily task and everything. There was just so much going on, and I had like my last call off, and I was just like, man, screw it. I am done doing this. I'm about to go work at a factory where I can leave work at work, and I was just done. And after I got through it, took some deep breaths, maneuvered, that day still sits in the back of my mind. Like that, I like, it was literally a fork in the road. Like, if I would have decided to do something different professionally, Tony Stewart is not sitting here. Because that's how I would have been, that goal-oriented. I would have been so dedicated to that. I don't think I've ever would have come back. When I first moved out of my my parental unit's home, I didn't return. I've never been back. Moved out and always been gone. Didn't have to sleep on anyone's couch. There were times I had to sleep on my floor in my house, in my home, because I didn't have a couch. Yeah. I was so poor, but I don't know. I just kind of went tangent mode.
Well, I mean, sometimes those low points are where, like, the realizing factor, because if you're comfortable and things are easy and you don't have to think about it, it's easy to just be like, well, I'm going to coast through this. But when you know your feet hit the pavement and stuff gets difficult, you have to do things that push you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where a lot of character is built, because, I mean, I've been there too, just like super broke. Trying to make it in video and podcasting is arguably one of the hardest things that you can ever do. I mean, from a making money standpoint. Physically, not hard at all. It is what it is. But I mean, it's one of the harder avenues to choose. And I naturally am someone who is pulled towards hard things. And I also know that if someone else has done it, it's possible. It's just figuring that out. And, you know, a lot of people, I think, want that sympathy to be like, oh, everything's so hard and everything's so difficult. Woe is me. I'm like, you chose this, though.
Yeah.
And that's where it's at with a lot of, like, the issues you're talking about in the DD field. Like, you chose to work here. Yes. Is it perfect? No. I've worked in a Fortune 500 company. It was not perfect either. I've worked for small local businesses. It wasn't perfect either. I've worked in construction. Definitely not perfect. I mean, pick your perfect. You know, everything's gonna happen.
The Reliable Drug and Alcohol Testing Clinic is a leading provider and convenient source of pre-employment and occupational type testing. Their clinic provides services to a wide range of private businesses, healthcare facilities, and municipal and county courts. Reliable is an independent, locally owned clinic. As a result, they provide their services at a lower cost than the major hospitals, have faster turnaround times on test results, and eliminate the long waits typically incurred at these larger facilities. To learn more, visit reliabledrugtest.com.
Have a flaw.
And I think that's always weird to me. I try to... Now, I get it. Some people's personalities might not match with other people's. So, and that's a very, very touchy part of what we do. And I would ask our listeners, like, would you have someone with a horrible personality, but impeccable human service skills in regards to, you know, cleaning, bathing, cooking, so on and so forth, versus someone who's a great person to talk to, but they're always late. They never clean up. They have a wonderful smiling disposition, but when you relieve them, the other staff person has to pick up extra slack, this, that, and the other. It's like, which is the better scenario to be in? And we too often get caught in this society of what we want. And although this is a great field of work to have, like, the heartstrings pull, like, oh, you're such a great person, and you go in and care for somebody, it sometimes gets irritating caring for someone who doesn't appreciate you caring for them.
Yeah.
And this is a very touchy-feely work aspect. If you are to say, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. They're offering more money to go work over here at this other place. And I don't have to care as much or be as in depth. So I don't know we just ask more questions, but where does a DSP supposed to draw the line? Where do they have this morality to say, okay, I'm just going to tough this out, or it's time to give up and move on? Like, I don't know. I'm gonna ask you, Paul.
Well, it's that's a question that everybody has at some point in their life. Is it worth the pay or whatever? But is it the thing that is, I think, frustrating for a lot of these companies is like nobody is unaware of where things stand. Nobody coming in or going out of this field is unaware of the issues with pay. Nobody is unaware of the push that's being made to get more money. So it's one of those things. It's like, this coming in, what the pay rates are.
And you ultimately agreed to it.
You agree to do the job and you're upset, which is understandable. But if you really love this field, I mean, that's just how it is right now. Is it going to get better? I really hope so. We know some people that are pushing very hard to make it better for everyone. Mm-hmm. It's just a lot of work, and working with the government in any capacity is slow. Unless they want your money during tax season, then they suddenly work very quickly. It's crazy how that works. But yeah, I have a hard time with that. Like, I do this job and you pay me what we agree to pay, and that's what it is. I agreed to that. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. It's pretty cut and dry, and that's how it always is, And I think, I don't know, there's just a lack of accountability for things. I mean, in humans in general, there's a lack of accountability. It's very hard to hold yourself accountable. Yeah. And that's kind of where I always stand is like, did I contribute anything valuable to this issue? If not, then that's my fault. It's
especially if I'm complaining about it.
Yeah. Before I complain about things, I usually try and figure out how I can make them better. Mm-hmm. Like for instance, I'm one of those people that I really do think it's important to be like first one up, last one to go to bed, or first one there, last one to leave mentality, because it just shows that you care, and it shows that you really are interested in what's going on. Like I just went to a conference this last week in Texas. I was literally one of the first people to get up every morning, and I stayed and talked to the last person who went to bed at 2 a.m. every night. Look. Was I tired? Yes. Am I tired right now? Yes. But nobody can argue that I didn't care about what we were doing there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important. And if you can garner that mentality, it's going to take you a lot farther. You might have to eat it for a few years. I did, starting in the video industry. It was rough. It still is rough. But, nobody's going to do that for you. And I think that's the biggest thing I ever learned was no matter what's happening, you're the only one that cares. If things happen at Friends for Life, at the end of the day, you're the only one that cares because it's your business. You know what I mean? Right. So it's like when things happen to me, if I want my podcast to grow, I'm the only one that cares. Nobody cares if it fails except me.
Now, it's funny that you asked that because it actually gets me back to the thought of some of the people that we have some of the hardest conversations with, and that's the parents / guardians. Mm-hmm. And I want to particularly say parent right now because we have some guardians who are a little more laid back and chill, and it's because they don't have that direct involvement through the parental units. So the parents, I've seen a lot of scenarios in which they're not prepping their family member for the ultimate future, or at least a possibility of an ultimate future. And we all know a lot of my passion is for self-sufficiency, and growth, to be able to have those who can't necessarily accomplish some of their goals with what they were dealt, but with some assistance through technology or human-based control. Why? I don't know. I guess because I am a parent, I don't really understand why it's so difficult to prep someone for life. And this is even where me and my wife we kind of differ in how we even teach our kids. And I don't know. I guess, are we hindering growth because we're afraid of either disappointment or we're afraid of the strategies that we're using to help people. So I don't know, from an outsider looking in a sense, because you don't have children and you don't really do DSP work, but how do you see something like that just from where you are getting fixed?
If you live in the Toledo area and you'd like to come work with us here at Friends for Life Residential Care, then head over to our website, friendsforliferc.com, and fill out our employment form. We'd love to see you on our team. We also have ads on Facebook. You can check it out there as well. We'd love to work with you.
Well, just from how I was raised, I mean, no is a common word. And when you're a kid, it sucks because you want what you want. But as an adult, it made me more resilient because, I learned that, once you jump the nest, nobody cares. You're not going to get what you want all the time. And I think that's a hard lesson, not even for kids anymore, but even adults, is like, you're not going to get your way always. You have to make your way.
Yeah.
It's hard. And if a person is raised by parents that give them everything they want and they're always hindering their growth, whether they have a disability or not, it's just setting them up to have a harder life because the parents aren't always going to be there.
Yeah.
And when you're on your own, your DSP doesn't care what you want. They're paid to make sure you're healthy and happy and all this stuff, but they're not. If you have an ambition to become a whatever, that's not their problem. They're there to do their job and whatever. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. Some DSPs go above and beyond and help garner that passion. But like just like an example for me, I went out and bought a camera one day because I really wanted to do it and learn. But like nobody was going to do that for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's just something that everyone needs to learn, is that whether you're a kid or an adult, is things are going to be hard. Nobody's going to care. Only your parents care, really, at the end of the day. And sometimes not even then.
Yeah, sometimes then that's even questionable.
So, and it's even hard now as an adult because you get so many opportunities when you do what we do to go places and do things. Sometimes it's hard to say no. You also need time to work, like live your life too, outside of work and a podcast. And there are opportunities where sometimes you're just not reasonable for you to do it. And you have to say no. No is a very strong word. And a lot of people don't like to hear it, especially if they're used to being told yes all the time. I use it quite often. No, I cannot. Sorry. And you don't need a reason to tell somebody no. It's none of their business, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's actually just being kind to say why you're saying no.
Well, I like a lot of problem I have too sometimes, even with scheduling stuff and I help run a conference down in Texas, so it's pretty far away. And sometimes you get people who just string you along, and it's like, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I need to know, because we're setting things up and it costs money and we have to buy things for people to make this conference run, and we have lodging and we're coordinating 100 things. And if you're saying maybe yes, I don't know, maybe until the last minute, that's stressing me out. If you can say no, and I know that you're not coming, you're doing me a service. Yeah. You're not going to hurt my feelings. We invited you. If you can't go, you can't go. And I don't know, I don't like that beating around the bush that a lot of people do as well. It's like a disservice. It's like, if you don't want us to be on our podcast, you can say no. Right. You're absolutely, like, nobody is forcing you. We just want to give you an opportunity to talk about these issues. And I have a hard time with that because that's not how I am as a person. So, and it's hard to relate to people who aren't like you. Yeah. It always is hard to relate to that.
It definitely, it slows things down. Comprehension stuff.
Well, I think that's a good point of where we're at right now with Friends for Life. And usually I don't like to announce things before they happen because it just makes you kind of look goofy sometimes if they don't end up following through. But we have been recording a couple of new shows.
Yes.
And we're kind of going a different route with our podcast. We're kind of branching out and turning this into more of a network, because Tony and I realize that we have very narrow path of what we talk about, and we have our own style, and we wanted to bring in other people who can provide you with different perspectives on this world, whether it's being a parent, whether it's being someone with a disability, whether it's being a doctor. We are bringing back Medical Mondays.
Yes, they are coming.
They're back. I know we've been saying that for a while, but it's been when you have new ideas, they kind of take a while to get going because you have to come up and redo the whole thing from scratch. So we're excited to start bringing you this stuff. It's going to be slow at first. But we're trying to provide the best information out there in the disabilities world. And with that is going to come a lot more content for you guys. So keep your eyes peeled for that. It'll be in the coming months. But we do promise that stuff is coming. And Tony, you got any closing words for the great people out there who love our podcast so much?
Yes, I do. It's really just, guys, stay tuned. I'm going to be breaking down a whole lot of barriers, a lot of new information. I'm going open. I'm going to talk about family dramas, family beefs on my own, things that have kept me from growing, things that help me grow. Not only just from a company standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. I'm actually going to ask some of the tough questions, like, can we really be friends with our individuals? Like, is it appropriate for a DSP to do that? How to do it? Are there rights and stuff that we should not allow our individuals to have? Like that's going to be a kinky conversation. But yeah, dude, I'm so excited for the direction that we're heading. And I think a lot of our listeners and a lot of our followers, if you're only listening to it, definitely watch us on YouTube. Check that out. Look at our sponsors. Check out the awesome things that they're doing for the community, for the world, and the work out there. But
and please follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We're having a hard time growing there. I know this isn't the most popular topic in the world, but we do have stuff that we put out there that is different from the podcast. So we'd appreciate if you went over there, and our YouTube channel, obviously, doing pretty well over there. People really seem to enjoy this content there. So, but if you could, just follow us on social media. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps us quite a bit to get our message out there. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We will be back next week with another episode.
Ooh.